Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to do an update, or a part 2 if you will, to the story I did a few days ago, all about the military guy who had his wife deported after things have gone too far. And as you guys all recall, because a lot of you guys saw this guy's first story, he made a ton of mistakes over the years in the military with this one particular woman. I mean, she was just terrible from the get-go. She roped him in through the loving and all that, and there were multiple signs that she was terrible girlfriend material, let alone wife material. Even her own parents said don't get involved with her, but he did. And after lots of cheating and taking her back, eventually he had kids with her, which complicated the situation immensely. And this guy was traveling the world in the military, and you all remember, made a lot of mistakes. And eventually, that was it, and she was deported. And he was left to raise his boys, and things were much better ever since then. And this is a follow-up to what happened afterwards. He goes into more detail about her, good old Jezebel, as he referred to her as well as his boys, what's been going on with his life, how he's had relationships afterwards, and he has learned. He's learned from his mistakes with his ex-wife to handle future girlfriends and handle things quite well. So even though the guy, lots of mistakes in the first story, and you guys certainly didn't hesitate to tell him in the comment section, he did learn a hell of a lot, and things are night and day better. So that'd be a good way to update the situation, because a lot of you guys had questions, and he's responding to a lot of things and things like that. So I figured I'd just pick up where things left off. And he says here, hey SSM, this is a long one. Well, lately these days, they're all long ones. Please feel free to clip this if you want to. I'm on a brain dump. After over 11 years solo with the kids, and in reality with no one else who really cares to listen, I can finally vent here. Even if it's to a mostly blank audience who doesn't really remotely understand what I went through, whether it's my fault or not. Thank you for posting my journey that I had with Jezebel. It was not a fun time in my life, but in the end, I don't regret it. I absolutely do not. Not one single minute of it. Well, I'd be regretting some things, but at the end of the day, you got your boys out of it, and you learned a hell of a lot. That's all you can get out of a situation. My skin is even thicker right now because of it. I also gained the greater knowledge to raise my boys as men. I learned very necessary lessons in life that I was lacking. I have my boys, well worth it. Bro, if you're happy, then I'm happy. You got your sons, and you can use all the mistakes you made to help teach them, and hopefully they listen. I did a story a couple days ago about a guy in the military who raised his sons in the way that what I talk about on this channel, and still one of them effed everything up. So you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it, but hopefully your boys are different. He says, would I do it again? Go through hell knowing that what lay in the end is what I have today? Fuck yeah. 10 times over, can I say fuck yeah again? Okay. I think if you can go back in time travel and teach yourself a few things, your life would have been better, but then again, you wouldn't have your boys today. So we can go round for round on that one. They are two very fine young men, respectful, considerate, and absolutely merciless. Though they were way too young when everything went down to understand what was happening, and too young even later on to get all the facts. They are older now and know more. Just not everything. I don't think your boys need to know everything, and you know what I mean about that, but a lot. That's okay. What happened between me and their mother is honestly none of their business. What is their business is what I gain from it all. It's always the goal for the student to surpass the teacher. I'm very proud of my boys for all the things they have and will accomplish. That's awesome, man. As young as they are far more ready than I was and absolutely less forgiving. They aren't that young anymore. My oldest is following in my footsteps with his next step after graduating, and my youngest loves science and engineering as much as I do. He's going to college before too long, and I know he will trample every college hoe that he comes across. He knows to rap it, LOL. Yes, always wear protection, always dispose of your protection, don't believe that she's on the pill, blah, blah, blah. And that's nice to say, but then again, all it takes is that one girl for your son to meet, so let him be aware there could be that one girl that could try to change his mind. Being a single parent, let alone a dad, was not very easy. When I got new orders back to the States and checked my boys into their new school and had to tell their school there was no mother, I got shocked stares. They honestly did not believe me. I had to make it a matter of record with the help of my new command that it was true. Honestly, I really don't give a flying fuck what they thought. Their job was to educate my kids and to not educate or judge me. That was just one of the first run-ins with their schools over the years. I earned a reputation and a few things. That didn't matter to me either. I never had nor I will ever do woke. I was both angry and jaded at this point. Can you blame me? I want to blame you, man. And good for you. I'm glad you're not doing woke. Look how well that has turned out in the world. I remember when I was very young, maybe 6 or 7 years old, when my older sister said to me, and this is the truth, I am laughing at this, don't be gay. There were 10 kids in my family. I'm number 9 out of 10. Holy shit. My father was a World War II era as in he went to war. My mother knew how to swing a wooden spoon when you did something wrong. Sounds like my old childhood. My dad was in World War II. My dad was born in 1922. I'm of a second family, guys. I know a lot of you know this. And he was a Marine in the Pacific. And, well, he didn't like to talk about a whole lot of details, as you can imagine. He's a guy that the war ended, and he literally tucked it in a drawer and moved on. GI Bill, went to school, became a doctor, and got married, had 5 kids, baby boomers. Didn't work out with her after a while, divorced her, met my mother. And said he never wanted to get married again, never wanted to have kids, and never wanted to own a house. He wanted to be free as a bird. He met my mother, got married, had kids, and owned many houses. So my dad was old school. I was raised old school. My mother wasn't far behind. He says, don't get me wrong, my family knew and had friends that were gay. I have friends that are gay, and I am thankful to have them as good friends. At this point in their life, though, my parents were older. They both worked, and we all grew up as latchkey kids. We took care of ourselves and each other. Mom and Dad left the education to the older kids for us younger ones. I've literally been knocked out on one occasion and thrown into the ceiling on another and called my sister a B-word. Both me and my younger brother were also nailed into a wooden box, gagged just for fun. The shit kids do. It's terrible. Just a few of many good memories. They were good. Seriously, they were. We all still get a good laugh at the things we did to each other. I did get even on many occasions. We were rough and tumble, not like today's kids. That didn't teach me what I had to go through later on in life, but it did give me tougher skin. Well, it was just my sister and I was usually the one tormenting her until she got so pissed off at me she would lose it. One time I was provoking my sister so much she just snapped, picked up a fucking rock, and threw it at my face from 3 feet away. And there's a family photo of me they took the next day with this big scratch under my eye. That's my sister. Push her too far. I wish that this story is made up. Just some psychotic fairy tale family destruction that you watch with your girl when she drags you off to the movies so she can cry about stupid shit to test your feminine side. It is not. And never do that. I agree with you, SSM. Never cry in front of a girl. I didn't then and still won't. I've only cried in front of my boys one time. That was when my mother died a few years back, just before COVID. She did not have COVID, but a heart condition, but that doesn't matter. I've cried many times in my life, but not in front of a girl or in front of my boys. I digress again. I agree with that, man. Think Saving Private Ryan. Great movie. Remember that scene where a third through the movie, Tom Hanks is the captain of their squad or whatever group that was called, and shit was hitting the fan. And at one point, Tom Hanks walked away from the group, looked around to make sure his guys weren't watching, and for like 30 seconds started bawling his eyes out. And then got his composure back, walked back to the guys. He could never let them see him cry because he was the leader, just like you're the leader to your boys and frankly to your wife or girlfriend. You're always calm, you're always cool, even though you shouldn't have to be. It is what it is. They need to see you as strong, and they can always see no matter what, you got your shit together. It is what it is. On your own, guys, if you gotta let it out, of course, you know. I fully realized that I was a simp and did many things wrong. By the way, I hate that simp saying. It was in the comments, so I decided to use it. I feel like I'm getting along with this new generation of fuckwits, which I am not. Thank you. Thank God that my boys did not subscribe to all this so-called simp woke crap. Yeah, if you're using those stunted words, you are woke and you need a good slap in the face. In the back of the head too, and a boot in the ass to move on. Well, guess what? Simp is quite appropriate for a lot of guys nowadays, and a lot of guys use it, and I use it, so. Back to where I was, no pity is needed or asked for. The pain and stress I went through were my own doing. I take full responsibility for my actions. Up until my first son's birth, with all that happened, I fucked up. I should have dumped her wretched ass. I didn't, and that's the past, all on me. Well, I respect that you take ownership of that, because a lot of guys would not. But you know what, bro? You did what you did. It was the past. But obviously I know that after all this, you learn your lesson. So it's like all these stories I go where guys mess up when they're younger. You learn. End of story. But of course you want to smack your younger self for the way you acted. You weren't raised as I was, and maybe not even in the same era. If you don't agree with this, and you grew up in the same era as me, then you are wrong and lying on every level, or just lying and being a troll. My father was the epitome of a shotgun wedding. It never happened to any of us, but it did. You better damn well believe that there was going to be a shotgun at a wedding if you knocked a girl up. I didn't knock up Jezebel before marriage. There were never any misunderstandings on that topic. You also never abandoned your family. Divorce was taboo and only for the weak. Suck it up, buttercup. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. That was the era. And yeah, you got a girl pregnant, you married her, or like you said, there was going to be a weapon. But look how miserable those people turned out, you know? And this is what I say. And you get a girl pregnant, and it is indeed your kid. Okay, fine. You got to take responsibility for that kid. But it doesn't mean you got to marry her and have a miserable fucking family. That is the way things were back then when my father grew up, and we grew up just the same. If it were up to him to divorce wouldn't be a statistic. My mother and father didn't always get along. They fought as all good married people do. They never quit and never gave up, though. When my mother wasn't driving my father up the wall, he was upsetting her. God bless her. I only heard my mother curse one time in my life when she said, "Fuck you," and the horse she rode in on. A very old saying back then. It meant you were dirt to her and to be scrapped off at the bottom of her shoe. He goes, "I'm sorry." So, no, not really. To give too much of my background. Just one last little bit. With some advice at the end. Before I get back to whatever her name was, after I left high school, went to college, and for a few years afterwards at work and all those other areas prior military, I was surrounded by girls, women, and those of the other gender. There were only two genders, by the way. I agree. I was away from home and had no friends. No excuse, though. Gentlemen, do not get trapped where you don't have a proper support structure of men. I did it, and I regret it. Frequently, you are judged by the company you keep, but surround yourself with those of a feather. Yeah, you are judged by who you keep company with, and it really is true. You know, how people behaved. We are the average of the people we spend the time with. You know, the saying is we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and there's a lot of truth to that, absolutely. I mean, I always tell you, look at a girl's friends, and that can tell you everything you need to know, and it pretty much is warranted. He says, other men, strong men, those of like mind, not assholes or dicks. No Chads or Tyrones. Strong men who know where they are, who they are, and where they stand. They treat with respect, but don't take their shit either. Respect is a two-way street, and you have to be able to give as well as receive. The same applies to you, women, maybe even more so. I fully realize now that I demand to be respected in my own home, and far more than I want you to buy me pottery or suggest date night where you pay. He says, now on to his ex. He says, was I far more than forgiving than I should have been in the beginning? Yes. Looking back now, 20 years later, if I could go back in time and fix myself, would I? That's a hard question. If I did, I would have saved myself so much heartache, lost time, and hard work. However, I would have lost my greater purpose and the 2 greatest young men of my life. It's true. If he went back in time, if he had the DeLorean, went back in time and told his younger self all these things, and his younger self actually listened to him, then his boys wouldn't be here today. So, I'm sure a lot of you fathers out there who have children you love immensely would, at the end of the day, choose your kids you have now in spite of all the shit you went through. You go through it again to have the kids that you love, even with that harpy that you married. It says, perhaps go back in time to the gorgeous young exchange student and make myself known to her. No, never look back. Make good with what you have and just pass on what you've learned. That is a legacy. Throughout our years, Jezebel was both good and evil. I know you said many things about her, and to be honest, they are true. Based on your story, they are true. And you rightfully smacked me many times. Justly. Well, my hand is still sore from smacking you, sir. I've been called every name in the book in multiple languages. Never really mattered to me. After all, I got engaged and nailed into what was a coffin but when I was a kid. My good friend in the military once said to a bunch of girls we went out with, when they were just constantly speaking their own language and not talking to us, clickety-clack-clack, shut the fuck up. Except for these girls, we all laughed our asses off. I said I had very few relationships growing up until today, even by today's standards. Besides being married twice, I've had maybe 8 other girlfriends. Even at 55 years old, every relationship I had took a toll and distracted me. I always took at least 2 to 3 year break between them. That actually makes a lot of sense, when women can barely take 2 to 3 days between relationships. Have I had one-night stands and girls I just screwed? Absolutely. Relationship-wise, very few. Girls can be a worthwhile distraction, and I did get very distracted from time to time. During our last bit together, 12 months when she was going off the deep end, I had a friend in my office where I was stationed. We spoke to each other about what I was going through. He said one of the most intelligent things I've ever heard. One of the craziest for us men. Perhaps one of the most lame things I've ever heard of a man. You know what? He was right. His father did it when he was having major issues with my friend's mother. Keep a journal, so I started. Aha. Journals are a great way to record everything that could help you one day, as well as venting. And this journal he's speaking of, well, you're going to see helped him. This is where I prayed every single night and every single day and every single night. I did not pray for myself. I prayed that my boys would be with me, not for my sake, but for theirs. There was no way in hell she could be a good mother in my eyes for them. I 100% agree with you on that. That's what I prayed for. I didn't pray for forgiveness for myself or for her. I didn't pray for redemption or for the bad things to come to her. I prayed for my boys. They were good boys and deserve so much better. So yes, whether you believe it or not, my prayers were answered. I truly do believe it. Fuck them pseudo-Christians that in their all high and mighty attitudes say otherwise, and that I prayed wrong and all that crap. You can pray for anything you want. The rest is up to a higher power. At this point in my life and career, things were pretty crazy. I was before my command on multiple occasions for the things my wife was doing. Not for what I did, but for what she had done and what was doing. I was on their daily tickler twice. That's the report commands get when someone royally screws up and ends up in big trouble. Commands hate to be blindsided when things go down badly. It looks bad on them and bad on the military members. Even though she was my dependent and I did nothing wrong, it was all the same. Yeah, you're seen as responsible for her. As a military member, you're responsible for the actions of your dependents. My life was an open book for at least 9 months afterwards. I had to report to them everything that I did, what she did, if I knew, and where my kids were. I know I said that I had a method to my madness in my last story. Here it is. There are no blue pill here. Don't care what anybody says. Here I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's. There are military regs that protect spouses. Military members have to prove they did no wrong and they are in the right. As a standard, spouses are allotted 2/3 of the military member's salary during separation unless you can prove very certain things. 2/3, huh? Remember this, young gentleman. That want to go in the military and get married and want to rush into a marriage with the girl you met last week because she's a hottie at the bar. Things most certainly always get the kids. I couldn't kick her out of military housing. I couldn't take the kids. My options were very limited. He's referring to when they were on base and she was out there cheating left and right and making a goddamn fool of him. Obviously, things were very difficult. It wasn't like in civilian life. So I sat back and I just watched. All the time she was out and never came home when I was. In my journal, dates and times. So he's keeping a record of all the shit she was doing to help him down the road. Every time she refused to be home when I had duty, it went in my journal. Every time she showed up drunk with her friends, into the journal with names and the commands of their husbands. I had no love for my wife then, nor do I do now. That went away. Honestly, I could only have pity for what was happening and for what I knew what was going to happen. I had one job and one job only for my family. That was my boys. We did everything together. I did everything to keep them distracted. Every time they asked, "Where's Mom?" we went out and did something. Those poor kids. Thank God they had you to take care of them and make sure no matter what, they're going to be okay. Anything. Whatever they wanted within reason. We lived overseas, but there were still many things we could do, even on base. Especially the indoor pool. Opens early and closes late. Even to date, my boys can swim incredibly well. I caught my wife late one night coming home and grabbing all the liquor she had in the house to go out. She was in a taxi, and I got a eagle-eyed view of who she was out with. Those 18 and 19-year-old kids I mentioned before. I knew many people in security on base, and after I figured out who it was, things started to get settled in. I kept up with my journal. So he sees that I can't just oust her because I'm in the military and I'm going to get hammered and all that. So he's keeping a big record of everything. When she's out, the dates, the times, who she's with, all that to help him eventually. One of the last times I saw my wife on her very infrequent times to come home, I let her know that her actions were only going to take her down, as well as everyone that she was doing shit with. She just cursed me again, as always, and walked out the door. Here is where my journal came in handy, and then a little luck. Well, remember, I emphasize this a lot in his other story, and I'm going to say it again. And he knows this. And I tell you guys all the time, when you take women back after they have mistreated you, it just gets worse and worse because the respect for you gets less and less and less. And as you all recall, from pretty much early on, after the whole honeymoon phase, she had cheated on him when they were apart. He could have broken up with her because they weren't married. He got back with her. She did the waterworks, and the respect went down. And there was a cycle of this, to the point that then he was married to her and had kids with her, and she knew darn well, I guarantee you, she knew darn well, like, this asshole can't do anything. Or at least it's going to be very hard on him if he does anything. And that's why you don't take back exes and ones that treat you badly and all that, because otherwise you take them back no matter how much they cry and promise to change, and you guys have heard this. You take them back, some level, deep down, whether they realize it or not, and a lot realize it, they're like, I can't believe this motherfucker fell for my tears. And you have less respect for you, and then it gets worse. Anyhow. Shortly after she assaulted her boyfriend, got arrested, and I left her ass at the station, she showed back up at the house to pick up her clothes. The phones were in my name. I canceled hers. She turned over her phone so I could sell it and asked to use my phone to contact her friend to pick her up, and I said, why not? She contacted her friend through Facebook but never logged off. After I took pictures of all her conversations with everything that she had and was doing, I turned the copies over to NCIS. She was deported. I transferred within a week. Those copies I had turned over were gold. I met that young man once before and warned him if he was going to F up royally if he was going to stay down the road that he was on. I let him know who I was and who she was. He tried to show respect, but I knew it was all going to end very badly. It did for him, and for some of his friends too. Hey, you play with fire, you get burned. That's what this young fucker got. That happened all well over a decade ago. I'm certainly not the same man I was before. I can hear my father and mother in all that I was taught. But I look out and I see things that are just not just the same. Is that wrong on them? I certainly don't think so. Yes, things were different back then. Times were different. Circumstances were different. Are we, though? Yes, things were different back then in many fronts, obviously. Your parents' mindset wouldn't work in today's world. It just would not, I like to go back to my roots, where women were women and men were men. Sounds like the beginning of All in the Family. Remember that show, Archie Bunker? That could never be on TV today unless it's some obscure rerun on some channel that doesn't care. Each knew their place in things. My father never degraded my mother that I ever saw. He treated her with respect, and she had an equal part in the house. Mothers raised the kids and instilled in them what they need to know, and fathers laid down the law and set the rules and guidelines on how the house was to be run. There was an equal stake in it for them. That's how my house was run. My World War II father laid down the fucking law. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old that he then went out of laying down the law mode and we became close because he saw the job was done. When I was a little kid, he was more relaxed, but when I got to about 10 years old, between 10 and 17, he was hard. My mother was tough too, but she was obviously the soft one. My mom took care of the kids and the bills and all the expenses. My dad, he was in charge. And if my mom would ever cross the line with him, she would on occasion, he would shut that down real fast. And they were in love to the day he died. It was amazing. May he rest in peace. My dad, great guy. I had an amazing relationship. Once 20 years old came, we started talking about the stock market. That's what bonded us and investing and all that. And he was like, oh, pumped up, and he started talking to me about investing and all that stuff, and that changed everything. I had an amazing relationship with my dad from 20 years old to, how old was I when he passed in 2019? So that was 4 years ago. So I was, 41 years old. 41. Great guy. Anyhow, he goes on, he says, kids back then didn't shoot up schools back in my day. When we fought, we had to fight. In the end, the winner won, the loser lost. We all just moved on. Knocked the guy down, and if he doesn't get back up, or doesn't want to, it is over. That was it. No weapons, none needed. Even in loss, there was respect. No second place trophies, just a handshake and a good job from the other team. From the loser it was, wait until next year. That was the order of things. Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, there was no what you have today. These fucking crazy nut jobs doing what they do in the schools. I gotta watch what I say. You fought, and I was in fights. You know, some I won, some I lost, but at least you fought. My wife hurt me in so many ways, but she never broke my skin. I never cried or surrendered. I may have taken her back in the past, but I took all her abuse as if it were water off a duck's back. It meant nothing to me. Truly, she wasn't putting nails in my coffin with me, gagged as much in my youth. Amazing, there were far more open holes about my wife that I just will never share. I'm not even going to touch that one with jokes about holes in your wife, dude. Amazingly, I like to say that once my boys came along, everything changed for me. It did and it didn't. I did learn where my priorities lay. I learned to suffer a bit to be better in the long run. For all three of us. You might say to the otherwise, but I did suffer for them. I would never admit that to them, though. There was no way in hell she was getting my boys. You're damn right. That was never going to happen, no matter how much she threatened. All I had to do was abide my time. The writing was on the wall. And she was writing it all. I watched as everything came undone. If you ever seen a mooring line snap, then you know how it went. All at once and violently. I've had 2 girlfriends over the past 11 years. The first lasted an amazing 5 years, as I'm amazed it lasted that long. When I bought my house, I invited her and her daughter, 14 years old back then, to move in with me after 2 years of dating. Smack! After everything you went through, you moved another chick in, a single MOM. I knew there was no way I'd get to this video without giving you a smack. I know you had 5 amazing years with her and everything, but still. Honestly, I was just tired of having to drive to see her. Red flag number 1, she wanted to be on the mortgage. That's a red flag. That's a massive red flag. Number 2, she wanted to get married. Nope, that will never happen again. Good for you. Still give you that smack for moving in a single MOM. I had 2 kids, she had 1. She paid half the utilities and half the groceries too, along with half the mortgage. She denied me SEX twice in a row. On the second time, we both agreed that she had to go. Awesome. Good for you. You learned. And she was gone. SSM, yes, I moved her in with me, but more cause I hate to drive than anything else. I was in control of all things. I laugh when I say that cause she hated that I had control of the house and all the finances, nothing lost. Okay, you should have moved her in, but you say you didn't want to keep having to drive to see her. But regardless, you didn't want to drive to see her, but then she moved in and she drove you nuts. But good for you for kicking her out and laying down the law. She's going to try the no SEX tactic to get what she wants. Goodbye. Good job. As usual, after a 3-year break, I met someone else. She was more different than anyone I had ever met before in my life. In the end, she wasn't. Of course. That's how it works. How many guys have said that? Oh, this girl's so amazing. She's so different. And blah, 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 blah. And after a while, you find out, nope, she's just like the rest. I have 2 rules in my house since my ex. There are no lies and no broken promises. Not for me, not from my boys, and certainly not from someone that I'm dating. The consequences are dire, whether it's me or them. Since we have been alone together, I have never broken a promise nor lied to my boys. Lead by example. They have in the past, and they did not enjoy the consequences, but they learned. I like that. We are very open with each other, and I know my boys trust me and my decisions. I've learned to be careful with what I say. Never make a promise that you just might not be able to keep. No matter what I did, if it could be held against me, I had to stand by and did it. And I did. We rely on each other to make our homework. My new girlfriend didn't fully understand that. She thought it was not a permanent thing or just between me and my boys. Nope, she learned the hard way. That first broken promise and eventually lie got her removed and deleted from my life. She cried and cried, boy she did, but I stood my ground. I never lied to her and meant that if she ever lied, she was done, and so she was. That's 2 for 2, guys. After Jezebel the wife, this guy learned now. Yeah, he moved that one woman in with her, but regardless, he still kicked her to the curb when bullshit went down. And the second girlfriend here, kicked her to the curb, bullshit went down. That's how you have to be. So this guy has redeemed himself on many fronts from his first story. If he kept doing the same thing, kept being cheated on or jerked around, all that, and kept taking it, I'd be pulling the few remaining hairs out of my head right about now. And yes, the hair is going, guys. I'm almost 46. It's pissing me off. You can't see it here, but it's fading in the back. But you guys in the 40s know it is what it is. At least I'm not going gray yet. I do want someone to share my life with. I certainly hope that there is. Nothing worse than living in a 5-bedroom home all by yourself, wanting to die so your sons can inherit it. If that's my lot in life, so be it. I just hope it's not. I see so many women ask, where are all the good men? He says, really? Fuck, where are all the good, honest women? Am I broken now? Am I jaded? Or am I just a man now? You tell me. Maybe it's a lot of all of them. You need a dog, dude. Or a couple dogs. Or if you're like me, a couple cats. Except good luck trying to sleep with your cats crawling all over you at night and you close the door and they meow. But we got a new system here in my house now. Yeah, dogs and cats. But you sound like a dog person. Shout out to the cat brothers out there. There are a few of us, but we got to stick together. I wish you luck, SSM, and all those whom you reach. Keep passing the good word. You know full well that men can just be as guilty as women, though. I completely agree with that. I'm not making excuses for my wife. I'm just speaking realistically. You can help women as much as you can help men. Teach them to. By teaching women, you can only help men and vice versa. I hope I can help teach some women. I know 4% of my subscribers has been locked in at 4%. It's 4% here in this channel, 4% on They Do What, and 4% on the SSM Clips channel. Isn't that interesting? And the women that are on this channel, that they seem to really like me and like what I talk about. And I notice overwhelmingly from the comments and the emails I get and the messages I get over on Instagram that they're all typically late 30s through 50s. They're much more conservative, traditional, and they watch me because they don't want their sons to end up with girls like what we have today. They typically loathe feminism and see the damages caused. They want strong, traditional alpha men, and they just don't like the mess they see. That's pretty much the overwhelming theme, which I've noticed. And they can't stand these soy boy, sissy simps, I gotta say, that we have today. That's overwhelmingly. Now, I'm sure I got some women that watch me that hate my guts and just watch me just so they can give me a thumbs down or talk some shit. But overwhelmingly, the ones that have been here really like what I talk about. So I do what I can. And hopefully I can get 5% one day. But we shall see. That's a stretch. Anyhow, bro, thanks for writing in. I know it was a long freaking story. And a lot of guys, they write in and it makes them feel better getting it all out. So that helped you good. And I'm really happy to hear that things are great with your sons and you've raised them well, and I'm sure they're great guys. And good for you on that, Dad, because you've been through hell. And a lot of guys won't be able to move on from that. And I also like the fact that your girlfriends you had afterwards, you know, you didn't make the same mistakes you did with your ex. And when bullshit started happening, goodbye. That's how you have to be. But a lot of guys don't have the fucking balls to do that. And a lot of guys can go through the hell you went through and they don't learn anything. You did. So I do wish you well. Like I said, get a couple dogs or a couple cats or something, you know, and just see what happens. But stick to your principles. And if indeed you do would like to have someone in your life one day, okay, it may just happen. But it doesn't mean you got to marry her. That ship has sailed. You're not ever getting fucking married, you know, or even living with them. But we'll just see how things go. So, sir, I wish you the best. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let this guy know what you think. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.